Hey guys, it's Duc. You guys ask a lot about how to create the slide out menu effect. So in this training, let's take that on. This is how the app will looks like after this killer training for you guys. So we are going to use a scroll view, and inside a scroll view, we have the left menu that we can slide to the left to show that menu. And that menu, you can use a table view or anything. We'll use a table view. We'll have different menu options. We'll click onto one. The view, the contents will slide to the left, and the content will change to the menu option that you selected. So that is basically how the app will work. Now there's tons of customization that you can do for this, but we'll keep it simple because we want to focus on that slide out menu. So step number one, guys, download the starter project I prepared for you by clicking the link right below this page. There'll be a link for you to download all the resources on the starter code that I already wrote for you, just to save us some time and set the stage for this training. So click there, submit your name and email so that I can send you all the resources for this video. And also I will send you some killer awesome trainings for you all for free. So go there and download it now, and let's get started.
Alright, the starter project, when you download it, we have a simple table view app that looks like this. But before we explore the starter project, let's look at the complete project. So when we run it, the starter project, it set up the table view just like this, with the views, the controllers, and the model. So basically what it does is it displays a bunch of Apple products just like this. Now when we add into that the menu, we can slide left like this, slide to the right so that we see the menu. And here we separate it into different product lines. We have iDevices, Mac, and software. So if I click to Mac, it changed the model into Mac. If we go into software, change the model into software. But notice that here, because I reuse the controller, so it seems like the UI is pretty much the same template, but you can use any controller here whether you want it or not. We'll talk about that in code, so you can generate that in code too. Cool? So now, if I run the starter project, if you haven't downloaded the starter project, please download now because you are going to need the starter project for this. So this is the starter project. You run it. It basically has the iDevices category. We have iPhone, iPad, and Apple Watch. Cool. Now I'm not sure if Apple Watch is iDevice because it has its own OS, but pretty much it works on iPhone, right? So now let's go ahead into your main storyboard, and we will design our menu. The menu here, if you look at the complete project, it is a table view controller embedded in a navigation controller. A table view controller embedded in a navigation controller. So now we can just drag out a navigation controller like this. And we'll drag out a navigation controller. If you do this in code, all you have to do is to write your own navigation controller and the table view controller. In fact, we are going to write the controller right now. Now, I will not make this navigation controller be the initial view controller. We want this navigation controller of the table view that displays the product to be our initial view controller. Cool? Okay, next up, let's add into these three items, but because here we use a static table view, it is not dynamic prototyped, so we can add into that menu items. If you want to have dynamic prototype, you can do that too, but because it is a simple demo, let's use static cells. Let's use sections is one, that's good. And then I'm going to drag into this some label, and drag into this the first label like this, right? It is 15 to the left, like that. And then here, let's use iDevices, or you can use iOS devices like that. And then copy, come on, paste No? Okay, I'm going to delete these cells and I will duplicate the iOS device cells. So duplicate once and twice. And here, let's use Mac and we have software, right? Now, let's rename our controller into product lines, like this. You don't need the menu because bumper, right? This is the menu. Everyone knows that this is the menu. We don't need to tell that is the menu. Pretty good, huh? Okay, I hope that it makes sense. Next up, let's name or let's create a placeholder for our TableView controller. So this will be controlled. This view will be controlled by a TableView controller, and I'm going to right click over the group here and create a new file, and let's use a script file. And this, let's call this guy menu TableView controller, like that. Menu TableView controller. I'm going to put that above here, and then let's import UI kit. We are going to need UI kit for this guy. Here we go. Then this is of class menu TableView controller. Menu TableView controller of type UI TableView controller, like this, right? UI TableView controller. So we have a placeholder class for our menu. Let's go back into the main.storyboard, and then we assign the custom class of this guy to menu TableView controller, like that one. Cool. And then because we are going to write code in our App Delegate to set up all the view hierarchy. So let me say that again. We are going to write code in our App Delegate here to set up our view hierarchy. We are going to need some view controllers, storyboard identifier. Make sense? So here in the first navigation here, I'm going to give it a storyboard ID of nav menu, which is navigation menu or menu navigation controller. Cool. Next up, I'm going to give this product lines the menu here, the storyboard ID of menu VC, MenuViewController, or you can call it menu TVC, menu TableViewController. Next up, this guy over here, let's call that Product TVC, Product TableViewController. See that? Awesome. Now, let's go ahead. So again, let's recap. What we just did very simple. We create the UI for this guy. We name a bunch of identifier for the navigation, the menu TableView controller, and the product TableView controller. Or this can be the view controller. It is in your main view, not the menu. And then we create a placeholder for the menu TableView controller. Next up, I'm going to create a class, a custom class of UIViewController for our Sidebar view controller. So script file, Sidebar view controller, and create. And then we import UIKit, like that. Let's make some space here. This is the class Sidebar view controller of type UIViewController, like this. Now, what happens over here is in UIViewController, what we can do is we can embed into a UIViewController two other view controllers. The first one is a left view controller. Left view controller is a UIViewController, like this. The second one is a main view controller, UIViewController. Now, the second one, the main view controller here, is going to be your main UI view. The first one is the menu. Okay? And then, if you look at this guy, over here, right? This is the menu. The menu over here is going to be the left view controller. The view over here, the product TableView controller, is our main view controller. And if you look at this, the menu is not completely visible. The menu is not completely visible. What happens is it has an overlap with the main view. So when we slide to the right, from left to right, we still see part of the main view. So that the user knows that, okay, this guy controls it is kind of like the navigation, so that they can navigate around the app and they can still see the context here, the UI here, right? So we are going to need a overlap of type CG float. Okay. Now, here is what the magic happens. This is where the magic happens. We are going to use ScrollView so that we will embed all of these guys, this MenuViewController and this Product TVC is indeed all of these things is inside this Sidebar View controller. And then the Sidebar View controller has a scroll view, and the scroll view is the effect that allows us to scroll left and right like this. So let's have here a var scroll view of type UIScrollView like this. Cool. And because we are going to write our code, all of these things in code, we are going to need a init with coder, a decoder like this. And then we are going to call super.init a decoder like that, right? Now, because we are going to, I want to make sure that no one else will call this guy. I want to make sure that no one else call this guy, because I want to make sure that whoever uses this class is going to use this second init, which is init with a left view controller of type UIViewController, and then main view controller is UIViewController with the overlap of CG float, right? Whoever uses this class will require them to use this initializer. That's why I'm going to do an assert here. An assert in the init coder. An assert that whenever who is calling this guy or this guy is called by the system, we'll make that false. That means that it will just like crash the app and will put out this message. Use init left view controller main view controller, and then overlap for this sidebar VC instead. So we require that, hey, I don't allow you to do this. You have to use this init. Cool? So that this will be set up correctly. Now inside here, things is simple. We just do self.leftViewController to be leftViewController, self.mainViewController to be mainViewController, and the overlap to be the overlap, right? And then maybe I'm going to set the view.background color to be white, the background color of this view. Now the view here is the root view of our UIViewController. Let me see over here instead. See that? So the view here is the root view of the UIViewController, this sidebar view controller. Cool. Now you may ask, hold on. You assign these left view controller and the main view controller and the overlap, but how about this scroll view? How about this scroll view? Well, let's have a method called func setup ScrollView inside here. Set up ScrollView, and then this method set up ScrollView will does all of the job to set up our ScrollView. So number one, I'm going to have the ScrollView to be a UIScrollView. Okay, and then because we are going to apply AutoLayout Constraints for this ScrollView, we need to do ScrollView.AutoResizing mask in constraint. Translate auto-resizing mask into constraints to be false. So what happens is whenever you have the fragment of bounds of the view set, by default, the system will have those resizing masks or those like sizes of the view the system will try to translate that into AutoLayout constraint. But we don't want that to happen automatically. We want to set those constraints by ourselves. So we set this into false. And then we do view, which is the sidebar view controller's root view, add subview of the scroll view, like this. Okay. Then we're going to add the AutoLayout constraint for the scroll view. So how can we do this? How can we do this? We are going to use something we called formatting language in AutoLayout. So the way we do this is we just very simple. We create horizontal constraints for the AutoLayout for the scroll view. And then we create the vertical constraint. So horizontal constraints like this, vertical constraints, and then we activate or we add those constraints into the scroll view, right? So let's horizontal constraint to be NS layout constraint dot constraints with visual format. This is the visual format language that I talked about, right? So the string, we talk about the string. So pay attention. The string, we denote that this is horizontal constraint. And then the horizontal constraint here, it has the two bounds is the views, right? Inside the view is the scroll view, like this. Now, how does it know this string to be our scroll view? You notice that I just put in an arbitrary scroll view string. How can it translate this into this scroll view instance variable that we have in our sidebar view controller? Well, that is this views dictionary is for. So this views dictionary, we give it a dictionary with the key is scroll view, which is the key that we use over here. And then the value is the reference to our view, the scroll view instance variable. You see that? Okay. And then the options, let's use an empty array. And the metrics, we do nil, because we just want to pinpoint the scroll view horizontally to the root view. Okay, and then let's do the same for the vertical constraint. Now here the scroll view is very simple. We just have to pin it to the top and the bottom of horizontally, and and then the left and right of vertically. So let's vertical constraints to be constraints to be NS layout constraints dot constraints with visual format is a string again, where the V stands for vertical, 2 pipes stands for the view, and then we have inside here the scroll view, right? And then options, we do empty set, matrix is nil, the views here, again we use scroll view and then scroll view. Pay attention to the pronunciation because it might be wrong, especially for these strings. Pay attention for these strings, okay? All right, next up, lastly, we activate these constraints. So NS layout constraint dot activate with the constraint here, and you notice that this is an array of constraints, NS layout constraint. So we just have to do horizontal constraints plus we concatenate the array, vertical constraint, and voila, everything is set up. You see that? Pretty cool, huh? Now we just have to call this setup scroll view inside our initializer over here, so that it will set up everything once the left view controller, the main view controller, the overlap, and the instance is created. You see that? Okay. Cool. All right. Now we have the left view controller, we have the main view controller, we have the overlap, and we set up the scroll view. Our next job is we need to somehow add the view controllers, the main view controller and the left view controller, onto the scroll view so that it works. So here, to do that, I'm going to call a method or write a method called a private func add view controller. View controller is of type UIViewController. Like this. This is a helper method. that we are going to call in our method called func setup view controllers. This is plural because we have multiple view controllers inside here. Okay, so we have this setup view controllers that we are going to call to set up all of these view controllers left and main into the ScrollView, over here. Let's see that. So now, setup view controllers. So the setup here, the add view controllers. How can we add the view controller over here? Well, we are going to do that using, number one, we will add the subviews of into the ScrollView. So ScrollView.add subview viewController.view. Now, before we do that though, we need to make sure that the viewController.view.translate auto resizing mask into constraints to be false, because we need to add those constraints. We need to add AutoLayout constraint to the ScrollView so that it will be something like this. Okay? We don't want to be automatically translate those into the AutoLayout constraints. We want to control that. Now, if you are implementing your own container view controller, which is what we are doing here, we need to call a method called add child view controller. Right, so we add the child view controller, which is this view controller, into our self. So we can call self.add child view controller. Now it means that this is the sidebar view controller. We add this view controller into the sidebar view controller, and it is required by UIKit that whenever you add or you transition that child view controller into this view controller, you have to call view controller did move to parent view controller is our self. It's just required. It seems weird, but it's just a requirement that we have to do it. Okay? Alright, so this method, helper method, allows us to add any view controller into ourselves. Right? Now, let's implement the setup view controllers. So the setup view controllers here, we do called add view controller. We add the view controller for the left view controller, and then we add the view controller for our main view controller. So basically what we do is we tell ourselves that, hey, I want to add the left view controller into ourselves, and also at the same time add the view of that view controller on the ScrollView. And then we add the main view controller and its view onto the ScrollView and then our view controller. You see that? Alright, now here's the hard part, and this can cause a lot of troubles. So please listen to me, pay attention, because this can cause you a lot of trouble. Certainly it does for me. So what we need to do now is apply AutoLayout to our left VC and main VC views. So number one, let's do views, not the VC. We cannot add the constraints to view controller. We just can only add the constraints to their views. So if you notice over here, right, we have an array, a dictionary of views. So let's create that dictionary of views that we are going to use in our constraints. So let views of type string to any to be a dictionary, and inside here, string to UIView, because it is a UIView that we add to the constraint. So here, inside here, we have the views. Number one, the left, or you can call that left VC. Let's call that left, is left view controller dot view. If you do it as left view controller, Xcode will yell at you because the type here is UIView. And then we do main, is main view controller dot main. And finally, we want to have the outer view or the container view is our view, ourselves over here, right? Outer view. Now, next thing, I want to add the auto layout constraints on all of these guys with the views. So here, let's the horizontal constraints to be NSLayout Constraints dot constraints, and then with visual format. Now the visual format here is a string, and then number one, we're going to have the pipe, our view, and then we make the left, right? We have the left on the left here. We position the left on the left, and then we have the main, like this, right? We have the main. Now the secret here is that we will make the main view has the width, the horizontal constraint, the width, to be exactly the width of the outer view, which is this view, which is the screen over here. Let me say that again. We will position the left view on the left and the main on the right, right? But then we'll make sure we tell AutoLayout that, hey, AutoLayout, I want you to make the main view here to has the width exactly equal to our outer view, which is the view that we put in the Sidebar view controller, which is this whole screen, right? So to do that in visual format language, we are going to have an open and close parent, and then we have equals outer, like that. Now you have to be really careful over here, because if you misspell the left, main, and outer, or any of these pipe or brackets, you're going to have errors and it is going to suck. So be careful with this, okay? Alright, next up, the options. The options here, after we do the constraints like that, we want to align all of these views on top of each other, on top horizontally like this. And then we want to align bottoms too. So it is a set like this, dot align on top, dot align on bottom. And the matrix dot equal, the matrix here, let's use nil. And the views, what's the views? The views is this views, right? You see that? The views. Now, next thing, let's do our left width constraint. So we have the left over here, the width constraint of this guy. So how much space is it that we want to add those constraints? So let left width constraint to be NSLayout constraint with the item. So what we does is we add the constraints of the left view controller and the main view controller, the constraints for those two. So the item is left view controller dot view, the two item over here. You see the two item, we have the item and then two item. So if you know about AutoLayout, that is like two items compared to each other. It has two items, item to item, right? So the second item that we want to do is what? Is our view for this view controller. The attribute here, I'm going to use dot width, and then the related by, I'm going to use dot equal. The second attribute is dot width, and then the multiplier is 1.0, right? But now, so what it does, if we stop right now here, what it does is it will make the width constraint of our left view controller to be exactly equal to the width. So here, what it does here is the width of the left view controller view is equal to the width of our root view, right? Because the multiplier is 1.0 and the related by is not equal. Now, we want to have the constant to be this overlap though, so that we always see this part. So the constant here, I'm going to use negative overlap so that it will move like this. You see that? It pulls like that. And then finally, let's have the vertical constraint. The vertical constraint is NSLayout constraints. And then here we use a string for the visual format. Visual format here we use a vertical, right? Because it is vertical space, but vertical constraints. And then the pipe. And then we want to make sure that inside here is we pinpoint the main view to our root view. So the main like this. You see that? And then we want to make sure that the main view has the vertical space exactly like the outer view. So equals to outer inside the paren. Like that. And then the options, we use empty set, matrix is nil, the views is our views, and finally, we are going to NSLayout constraint that activate our array of constraints. Right? Activate the constraint. But notice here, this is an array of constraints. And then we have an array of constraints because this is horizontal constraint. We call the NSLayout constraint dot constraints will return for us an array of constraints. But then this also an array of constraints. This left with constraint is one single constraint. So to do that, we are going to horizontal constraints, and we add into that the vertical constraints plus. And then we also plus another array of constraints. And the array of constraints, very simple, we create an array with the left with constraint. And then voila, we have the constraint set up, right? Now, our last job is we have to call this guy again inside our init. Left view controller, main view controller, and overlap. Set up view controllers in our init. But pay attention though, that you must do this. You must do this set up view controllers after you set up the ScrollView. Otherwise, it will crash because the ScrollView isn't initialized yet. So pay attention over there, right? So next up, let's set up our view hierarchy and set up the sidebar view controller in our App Delegate. Before we do though, there's an error that we need to fix. That is, before that we set these self.view.background color, self.setup ScrollView, and setup view controller, we also need to call self.init with, I think no, that is self.init with nickname, because we are going to use the storyboard. So super.init with nickname. Now we are going to put the bundle and the nickname here as nil because we will set up this anyway, but it is required us to call the init from the super. So now we build the project and see how it looks like. Okay, succeeded. And maybe I think that there was an error that over here it should be MenuViewController.view. So if you were typing in .main, that may be an error for us. So be careful with that. Cool? Alright, next up, let's set up our view hierarchy in the sidebar view controller in the App Delegate so that we can run our app. Now here I'm going to run it so that I can have the simulator, but it will not work right now because we haven't touched anything with the menu tab view controller and the sidebar view controller yet. So let's go ahead. While it runs, it will just show us a simple table view like this, right? And again, this is our complete project that I run over here. That we have the slide menu like that. Now, what we want to do is in your App Delegate.script, we're going to inside the finish launching with options. Let's have the storyboard. Let's storyboard to be our UI storyboard with the name is main because our storyboard is main. The bundle is main bundle.main. If you don't know about it, every Xcode project is called a bundle. So they call it a bundle, and we have the main bundle is pretty much your project over here. Oops. Like that, and we get the storyboard. If you name your storyboard differently, then you put in the name differently. But if you use the default one, then we have it just like that. Okay, so here is how our view hierarchy of the app looks like. We have the menu navigation could be the root view of the window, because you know every iOS app has a window, right? So now let's have below our var window, let's have var menu navigation to be of type UI navigation controller, like this. And then inside this navigation, let's have the sidebar view controller. I will abbreviate here to be VC. Sidebar VC of type sidebar view controller. Right? Now, next up, we'll have the navigation for this product app that we have. So I'm going to have the product nav of type UI navigation controller, like this. Now this is menu navigation. Let me shorten it to be just menu nav so that it looks consistent with our naming convention. Right? Now, the next thing is, you notice inside our app here, we have 3 menus. And then we have, click on over here, we have that Mac view controller and then the software. So, pretty much we display 3 different navigation, 3 different view controllers. So, I'm going to store here the product view controllers to be an array, an empty array of Apple product TableView controller, like this. An empty array of Apple product TableView controller. Now, this here is this Apple product TableView controller. It displays a bunch of product, but inside your app, what you can do is you can use your own view controller or anything that you want, and it doesn't have to be of one single type. It can just simply be an array of view controller, and you can cast it down as you check it. Because it is a demo, so I will keep it simple. We use one simple one simple class here. Cool? You cool with that? All right. Now let's populate those Apple products TableView controller, or those controllers, with the data source that we have. So for product line, in the product line model class, we have the model class called product lines. Product lines, this method will give us an array of product lines. So here we enumerate through each of the product lines. And then for each of this product line, which is we have the software, Mac and iOS devices, right? So each of the product line, I'm going to create a product TVC, TableView controller, to be storyboard.instantiate view controller with identifier. And if you remember, in our storyboard over here, let's go ahead, in our storyboard we have this guy, and the storyboard ID is product TVC that we set in the very beginning of the training, right? So here, the product TVC with identifier, I'm going to put that as the string of product TVC. Cool? And we also have to cast it down as Apple product TableView controller, which is because the storyboard.instantiate view controller returns for us a view controller. And I really believe that is a view controller optional. Oh, it's a view controller over here, right? A view controller. That's why we need to have cast it down as the product. Then we just have to do what? Yeah, we just have to assign product TVC dot product line to be our product line in this for loop, and then we'll append this product TVC into our array of view controllers. So product view controllers dot append the product TVC. You see that? Okay. All right. Next up, let's create our product navigation controller. So we can do that using product nav equals to UI navigation controller with the root view controller. So the navigation controller, we can create one with a root view controller. And the root view controller here, I'm going to use the first one as this guy over here. Right, this first view controller, that is the product view controllers. Oops, product view. Oh, where did we product view controllers? Right, product view controllers at 0, the index, which is the first one. Okay, let me build it, make sure that everything is good. All right, now we have our array of view controllers. We have the navigation controller that it has the Product TVC controller, the first one. Now let's set up our MenuViewController. Let's MenuVC to be a storyboard dot instantiate view controller with identifier. I'm going to use the MenuVC, which is the one that we set in the first place, as a menu TableView controller, right? Then we're going to create the menu nav to be the UI navigation controller with the root view controller of our MenuVC, right? Then we need to create what? We need to create this menu sidebar view controller. Now this, what's that? With this menu navigation over here is this guy, and the menu table view controller is this guy, just a dummy class that we create in the first place, in the first few minutes of our training of the workshop. Remember that later on that this class over here, this menu table view controller, we can add some delegate methods into it. We can add some delegate methods into that. For example, when I click over here, this menu table view controller, its delegate, is going to receive a delegate method of the select row index path. Remember that? So we can do that, right? So we'll do that in the end of this workshop. So we have the menu nav. Now let's have our sidebar VC to be UI navigation controller with the root view controller of the menu VC. So the menu VC here, we have the menu nav is this guy, the menu nav, and then the root view controller of that nav is this menu VC. You see this? Okay. Then let's create the sidebar. The menu nav over here, right? The navigation over here, and the root view is menu VC. The sidebar view controller, apologize. The sidebar view controller is the sidebar view controller with the left view controller, main view controller, and the overlap is like that. Remember our initializer? You see this? The sidebar view controller and the init left view controller, main view controller, and the overlap. You see that? So the left view controller, what is it? Left view controller, what is it? Yeah, our menu nav, which is this guy, this left one. And then the main view controller, we have the main view controller is the product nav. And the overlapped, I'm going to use, let's say 86.0 over here. Let's just test it out and we'll see. Cool? Now, last thing we do is we assign the window. We get the window equals to UI window with a frame of UI screen dot main dot bounds like that, and then we set the window dot root view controller to be the sidebar VC, and then we have to call this windows dot make key visible. Now this make key visible will shows the window, and see it over here, right? Shows the window and make it the key window. We don't call this, it will not show. So now let's run the app and see how it looks like, and hopefully we see the menu. So let's see it. Okay. Alright, pretty good. You see that? You see this? Yeah, we show our navigation, the menu. Voila. Let's see that. Awesome. You see, we can slide left and right. Now, there's of course there's a lot more things that we can do, but that is the major thing that we just did. So now, the next step. Hey, we just did this. Awesome. Good job. Good job following along so far. I know this workshop has been long and it's kind of hard, but I hope that you enjoy it. And I hope that I add a lot of values here for you in this workshop. So if you have any questions, feel free to post it in the comment section and just keep going. Okay? So now, the next step we will do is whenever we click into each of these cells, let's change the content of our main view. We click into Mac. We want to see a bunch of Macs. To do that, we'll need to edit our code in the menu TableView which is the thing that is responsible for this class. So menu TableView, let's have the tail view that select row at index path. And we have to override this. Override because this is a UI TableView controller, right? Okay, now there's a problem though. A huge problem actually, is what we want to do is whenever we click over here, right? So this method will get called. Then somehow we want to trigger an action that can change the content of this guy. So one click here, we want to change the content of this guy. So it means that whenever we click over here, this method gets called. Somehow we need to tell this Apple product TableView controller or the view controller that we want to do change the content, right? Which is our App Delegate here. The App Delegate that it has a bunch of product navigation and it has the product view controller. So whenever this method gets called, we want to have this product nav change to the next or to the selected view controller that was selected. Make sense? So how can we do that? So basically our task here is we click here, we have to trigger an action over here. Alright? So how can we do this? Now, one simple, really simple way to do is we can get the App Delegate. We can get an instance of the App Delegate in here, but that is kind of like a bumper and it will not work as well because we have to trigger a lot of things and it can cause a lot of memory cycle problems and it somehow will violate MVC. The way to do this is we will use protocol-oriented programming. So we'll have a protocol here called MenuViewController Delegate. And because we want to make sure that this is a class protocol, so we have the class here, and the function is MenuViewController, right? And we want to have pass in our MenuViewController and the select row for the row int, like this. So whenever what we could do is inside our UIViewController here, I'm going to have a quick var delegate is of type MenuViewController delegate optional like that, right? Then anyone who wants to be this class delegate has to conform to this MenuViewController delegate. And whenever this TableView that select row index path gets called, we're going to tell our delegates that, hey delegate, the MenuViewController just select the MenuViewController that select, oh my god, delegate, MenuViewController delegate, right? The delegate, and we use optional delegates like this, dot MenuViewController, and then self that select row for the index path dot row, like this. Let's build it. Okay, so somehow Xcode doesn't give us autocomplete. So here is the workflow. Whenever a cell gets tapped, this method will call, and the delegate will get notified of this method. Now we have to tell the App Delegate to be our MenuViewController delegate though. And the way we do this is inside the function application that finished launching with options, we have the menu nav, right? The menu VC. Then we'll do MenuVC.delegate to be ourselves. Then we have to tell that we are going to conform to the MenuViewController delegate. So I'm going to create an extension of the App Delegate extension App Delegate conforming to MenuViewController delegates like this. MenuViewController delegate. And there's only one method that we have to implement. MenuViewController controller this select row like that. Now, here we have access to the row. Right? We have access to this row. So let's have the destination. Let our selected VC view controller to be the product view controllers at row. Then let's have if the product nav dot top view controller, if the top view controller of the product navigation here, the top view controller, which is the one that is visible, if the top view controller is not our selected view controller, then we are going to tell the product nav that, hey, set the view controllers for that product nav to be an array of only the selected VC. And animated, let's put that as true, like this. You see that? So what it does is it will throw out a bunch of other view controllers that is currently on the product nav, and it will set this. You see that? So now let's run it. Here we go. I'm going to select Mac, and it shows Mac. See? And now I'm going to select software, and it shows software. But you notice that because we set the animated here to be true, that's why whenever we call it, we select it, it has that slide, like push segue kind of animation. So we don't want that. Let's put that as false. We just want to immediately change the content of the page, right? Now let's see. Here we go. We select iOS device. It's still there because the top view controller is still the selected view controller. Software, we change this. Beautiful. Mac, change. Right? Now, what we want to do next is whenever we click here, we want to deselect the cell too. So, can you pause the workshop for just 3 minutes or 2 minutes and try to do on yourself just one single line of code, how to select this guy, and the cell will deselect itself. It means that it will not stay gray like this. We want to be white again. Can you do it? So let's pause the workshop. Do it now. Alright, did you do it? So I already assumed that you will do it. I'm going to do that in the MenuViewController. Very simple. In TableView, the select row index path, we're going to do TableView.deselect. So this class doesn't give us the ability to have code completion. TableView.deselect row at index path with the animated to be true. Now let's run it and see how it looks like. It doesn't show us our completion, right? So it sucks. Now let's see iOS device, and nicely, cool, right? Okay, now let's very fast. What we want to do is you see that when we scroll to the left and we can scroll to the right, it's still bouncing. You see that this is a standard behavior of ScrollView. And then we also have this scroll bar or this like indicator scrolling below there. So let's change that inside our Sidebar view controller when we set up the ScrollView. And then before we add that to the subview, to be the subview, let's do ScrollView.bounces. ScrollView.bounces to be false. So now let's run it. So over here, and we can have lock to the left and right. See that? We lock to the left and right. Right? Very cool. Right? But now, there's one huge problem, and that is we can start in the middle. How's that a menu, right? We can start in the middle. So very simple. We can do ScrollView dot is paging enabled to be true. So we'll have the paging view, paging effect. Now let's do it. Here we go. See that? If I start in the middle, it will not show. And if I scroll to the left, it will show to the left. Beautiful. Then let me disable this horizontal indicator. So here, let's do ScrollView.shows horizontal indicator to be false. So it will not show the indicator anymore. You see that? Alright. Nicely done. Now, the next thing I want to do is, if you look at the complete project, over here we have a little shadow so that we know for sure that this is a different layer. Now these things look not so nice, but I just want to show you that you can do that and you can add your own design later on. Okay, so what we can do is, let's have below here, let's actually have a private extension. Oh, you know what? Yeah, let's have the private extension of UIView, because we want to add the shadow to the view. So func add shadow, like that, right? Add the shadow. Then we do self.layer.shadow path to be a UI Bezier path with the rectangle is our self.bounds. And we have to turn that into a CG path. So this thing will give us the rectangle, the kind of like the path of where to draw that shadow. Then let's do layer.shadow radius to be like 0.5, 2.5. Then let's do layer.shadow offset to be a CG size with a width is 0 and the height is 0. Then let's do layer.shadow opacity to be 0.7 and layer.shadow color to be UIColor.black.cg color, like this. So now let's run it. Oh, this is shadow path. No, this is shadow radius. Oh, by the way, we haven't added this shadow to the view. So now we have to add that whenever we have the, over here, we set the view controllers, right? We want to add the main view. So before we activate the constraints, let's do MenuViewController.view.add shadow. You see that? We just call the add shadow method onto the view, just like a built-in method, without having to write like a different method. It seems like a built-in of UIView that can be somehow like trick, right? But this is private, so we don't have to worry that other classes will have access to this guy. So it's the work. Now let's run it. Here we go. Boom and boom. You see that? We have very nicely, right? Incredible. Okay. You see that? All right. Now, two last thing is, let's run the project now. Let's run the project now, and you'll see a huge problem. There will be a huge problem. That is, right now, you see this? Right now, on the first run, it shows the menu. But actually, it will be nice if on the first run, I'm going to close this complete project like that. On the first run, we will have the main view. This is available like that, right? So now let me run it once again. Here we go. Apple product, run it, and the first view is the product page. So let's do that. How can we do that? It's quite simple actually. In the Sidebar view controller, we have to store an instance variable so that we can know it is the first open or not. So var is this the first open? then by default it is false. I'm sorry, it is true, right? Then inside our view.layout subviews method, we want to check if super.view.layout subviews will allow the superclass to do whatever it does, and then we to check if the first open, if this is the first open, then we are going to change the first open to be false. Now it will not be the first open anymore. Then I'm going to write a method maybe below here. Yeah, here let's have a mark called close and open the menu bar. So here let's have a private, or actually this one, let's close, I'm sorry, func close menu animated is bool. Actually, just let's leave it there as animated like this, and we'll use the label like that, right? Close menu animated, and then inside here we'll implement whatever it takes to close the menu, right? Because on the first one, it's by our setup. Remember, by our setup, the left view controller is on the left, the main view controller is on the right, and by default it will be like this. But then we're going to tell the ScrollView, that if it is the first open, we'll close the menu so that the user will not see that animation, or it will see the MenuViewController by default. So over here in the view, the layouts of view, I'm going to call close menu animated is false. We don't want to see the animation, remember? Then now inside the close menu, the way that you can do that is you just have to set the ScrollView.set content offset. Set the content offset to be a CG point of with X is left view controller .view .frame .width, with the Y is 0. So the offset of this thing will be the left view controller will be this guy, basically the width of the frame, and then the Y is 0. Animated, let's do passing this animated argument that we have. Cool. So now let's run it and see how it looks like. Okay, now by default it closed, and we can still put it to the left and right like this, right? Awesome. Now what I want to do next is I would like to challenge you. Oh, you know what? Yeah, let me implement a few other methods to help you to open the left window, because right now if like this, right, when we want to select this guy, so the complete project, when we click over here, it will close the menu immediately. We close the menu automatically. So your first challenge, CC1 code challenge number 1 is close the menu when a menu item is selected. The second code challenge though, is whenever we click over here, right? Whenever we click over this button, we are able to open the menu. So they don't have to drag it. I mean, like the advanced user, they can drag it, but some user, they want to select this. You see that? So what I want to do is the second challenge is click the menu button, open the sidebar menu. Now inside, in your complete project, inside the assets.exe asset, you have an icon menu bar. So what you can do is you put that inside your views, menu storyboard, drag it out. Let's have a bar icon, what is that? Bar button item like this. So we drag this thing to this guy. We change the bar button item instead of the title. We change the image into icon menu bar. just like this, right? Then we have to connect the IB outlets, the IB action to all of those things. But I want to challenge you to do this, and to help you a bit with the challenge, let me help you to implement some of the methods, right? Some of the methods. Let's do that. So let's do a func open the left menu. Open the left menu. Is it animated and bool, like this. And then we'll set the ScrollView.setContent offset to be a CG point with the x is 0, the y is 0, and animated is animated, like this. So whenever you call this guy, it will automatically open this guy. And it will has the animated or not, because of the ScrollView here, it will immediately change it. That's the magic of ScrollView, and that's the reason why we want to use that ScrollView thing. You see that? But then the next thing is in the complete project. I trust that you can now open or close the window, right? I trust that. But in the complete project, if you look at this, if I click into this guy, it can close the menu too. If I click here, it can open it. So it means that we need a method to toggle. It means that I can either close or open. Toggle, that is what it is. Toggle the menu open or closing. So to do that, let's implement another method called func toggle menu bar, menu sidebar with animated. You know what? Let's do func toggle left menu animated bool, like this, right? But then here we need to check, is the left menu open? Is it open, right? So to do that, we just have to do var is left menu. Oops, I just hit Command M. That's why it's minimized like that. So let me open up my Xcode. Here we go. Over here, let me actually do this as a method. So func, we can do as a computed property too, but let's do that as a method. Is left menu open, return the bool, and we just have to return the ScrollView.content offset .x equals to 0 or not, because the content offs whenever here, right? Whenever here, the content offset of the ScrollView is 0. But if we put it over here, the content of ScrollView is still this big whole chunk things. And you know what? Let me click this button over here, click that over here to see the interface with the ScrollView. You see that? So this guy, this is the ScrollView. You see this over here. We only see the main view right now is because there's still inside here some reason it doesn't show, but outside of this, to the right over here, there's still the main view controller, the view of the main view controller. And the reason for that is the ScrollView, the content size of the ScrollView is that big, right? And this is only the visible, the content of the ScrollView. And if I scroll to the left like this, the offset of the ScrollView changes. So that's why we can check the ScrollView content offset.x. If it is 0, then it will be this point. This means that the menu, it is at the left, it is opening, right? That's why when the toggle left menu, if it is open, if the left menu is open, then we are going to close the menu. And I don't know if the user of this method wants to animate it or not. We just pass in that. Otherwise, else we will open the left menu and also animate it. And with that, my friend, you can use this toggle method to either close the menu or you can either click the menu. You see this? So you can either close the menu or you can click open the menu. And I'm going to leave that toggle left menu above the here. You just have to use this toggle left menu.
Alright, so that is how you create the slide out menu effect. I hope that you enjoy this training. There's a tons of things that we cover in this one. We built it all from scratch, and we even architect our view hierarchy all in code. I hope that you enjoy this one. If you have any questions, feel free to post it right below this video for me. And also, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe to the channel so that every single week I will deliver for you free training videos, tutorials every week right on this channel. And then what I would love to do for you is I have a video tutorial series on how to build world-class apps like Instagram, apps like Facebook, apps like Nike e-commerce store. People ask me how to do that, and I try to figure that out on my own. So I would love to share that with you all for free. So click the link right below this page, that you can send me your name and email so that I can send you all the resources in this training, and then those free training video tutorial series for you all for free. So my friend, go there, download that series and subscribe, and I'll see you next week.